Wes, thank you very much. And now we are going to proceed to our very next workshop. Ali, are we ready to go?
Good morning.
We're ready.
Ready? All right, very good. Good to see you. Good morning, everybody. We've got a few late risers around here, but they'll fill in the next few minutes. Great to see you. Hope everybody's enjoying the conference so far. I have to tell you, this is one of the more exciting ones I've been at. There's a dynamism in here to which I attribute that to the students and your remarkable participation in this. Do exactly what you did yesterday today. Keep the mobile phones silenced. We have not had a problem with that, so I appreciate that. Please complete those brainstorming cards that I showed you yesterday. You got those yesterday in your summit bags. Please bring them to the brainstorming lunch today and hand them in. You'll also receive your table number assignments by email this morning. Please, when you get to lunch, take your assigned tables as quickly as possible. They are identified by numbers and themes. A facilitator and scribe have been assigned to several of the tables. If either or both are missing, please choose one from amongst yourselves. And then leave the tables on the cards for the staff to retrieve after lunch. Okay, that's the business of it. You know how to ask questions here. There will be 2 mics at stands. We've got the catch boxes that'll be available for you, and there's the app, and it's all working very well. There are a lot of questions. That's the way we love it, but unfortunately, we're running out of time to get some of those questions answered. However, this morning we're going to have a good long Q&A period. You'll have 2 speakers. They'll speak back to back, and then we'll all come out together and have a conversation. The focus of this morning's first session is the increasing risk of global climate change and sustainable government. Your first guest is Yihui. He's a senior advisor of the China Meteorological Administration. He's a professor and special advisor on climate change to the China Meteorological Administration. He's been involved in atmospheric science and climate change as well as severe weather. His main research interests are climate prediction, climate change, and monsoon meteorology, in particular, seasonal prediction in the East Asian monsoon. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Yihui Ding.
Great job.
Please have a seat, and then we'll come and get you.
This morning, I would like to talk about the climate change. The title is the increasing risk of global climate change and sustainable governance. First, I would like to show you 3 slides. These slides to show you the global mean average temperature increase trends. So immediately you can find out that the curve is going up starting from the beginning of the last century until present time. So this is so-called global warming. Next one is Chinese curve. It's almost the counterpart of the global one, So you still can find out, starting from the 19th century and going up and until the present time. It's also linear trends, increasing linear trends of the increase, The question is why we starting from the 1950, the warming rates become the accelerated. So this is the need to explain for scientists, The next one is the CO2 emission, CO2 emission. So we collected and combined together the 2 measuring stations. One is come from the Mauna Loa, Honolulu, Another is come from the Waliguan of the western part of China. This is a high mountain measuring station, So we combine together. So you can find out there is a very consistent trends, increased trends starting from the 1990. This is a part of the curve of the CO2 increase, So it's a very uniform, distribution of the CO2 contribution. Why the CO2 concentration and the global mean temperature have a same consistent increase, at the same time period, So the IPCC explain, the CO2 probably is the anthropogenic force for the global mean temperature increase, So through the technique of the detection and attribution, So if this conclusion is correct, so we must pay more attention to reduce the CO2 emission and then atmospheric CO2 concentration, So this is a big problem for climate change, Next one, I would like to emphasize, the climate change is a high risk. It's the risk problem, If the temperature is going up, the risk is also going up, So this is also consistently change, So I'm going to show you. We have 5 risk item, which is closely related to climate change, The first one is extreme weather and climate events, The second one is the failure of the adaptation and the mitigation of the climate change, If they fail, that will have a very, very disastrous concentration. The third one is a large-scale loss of biodiversity and the collapse down of the ecosystem, This is a largely scope, The fourth one is a large-scale natural disaster, Fifth one is anthropogenic environmental damage and disaster, including the persistent and heavy days, So therefore, the global climate change is core risk, which is ranked as the second one of the global great risk, If you look at the next slides, you can find out the first two, first and the second risk of the risk is the unique and threatened events and extreme events and extreme events. The left panel, if you look at the first and the second column, it's imply the risk level, very high, because the threatened system and extreme events are very sensitive to temperature rise, So if temperature rise by the 1 degree, it's caused the change of these two system. So this is a big problem. I would like to show you the example, The first one is the global flood risk, This kind of risk is increasing very quickly, The left panel show you the flooding frequency, basically, because we use the return period of the flooding, It's the same meaning as the frequency of occurrence of the flooding, So if you look at this diagram, very clear, the blue area show you rapidly increasing flooding, the frequency, frequency. So in China, in India, in Africa, in the North America, and even in Eurasia latitude area, So most of area have suffer the flooding, the increasing frequency of the flooding, So this is one frequency aspects, If you look at the exposure, which imply how many people, suffer from the flooding, If you just the left panel show you, At the present time, it's very low, It's not so high if you compare to the future. The future is increase very quickly, which implies so many more and more people, has exposure to flooding, has flooding. So that's a big problem from the flooding. Next problem is the heat wave. Last week I come in Beijing. I was in Beijing. We suffer from the heat wave for almost 3 weeks. The temperature is going up. It's going up to the 35 to 37. In some area, it's up to the 40 degrees centigrade. It's very hot. We never experienced such kind of the heat wave weather. Then I come to the Washington. I also have experienced the heat wave. I thought it's cold weather. Because it's cold, it's very close to the ocean. But it's still very hot. So that's give you some indication. The hot weather probably is going to be a new normal, for climate. It's not only for some places; it's almost worldwide. If you look at this diagram, you can find out the red area show you the heat wave, the high frequency heat wave areas. So including the India and China, eastern part of the United States, and Africa, Australia, almost cover many places, So next one is the rapid melting of the glacier, I selected one case, for Tibetan Plateau glacier melting. So there's the 20 glaciers over the Tibetan Plateau have very rapidly melted. If you look at the insert map, that gives you location of the glacier. So each glacier have a mass loss very quickly. So you can get the number, the minus number. Is so different. I just make a line, from the. So. More important, the climate caused the sea level rise. So next, I'm show you the updated sea level rise map, which is produced by the UK Met Service. So you can find out in the western and the central Pacific Ocean, the sea level rise is going up very quick, very quick during last 30 years. And also in North Atlantic, it's also going up the sea level rise, So that's a big problem, I'm going to show you next slides. This is also we co-produced with the UK Met Service and the Chinese Climate Center. This diagram will only give you some signal, in the future, If the global temperature warm up to the 2 degrees, we have an up panel, This is Shanghai commercial center, which is so-called Lujiazui, that's the area's name, So almost heavily flooded, if we have a 2 centigrade increase for temperature, If we will have the 4-degree increase of temperature, that will be have the bottom panel, which is show you all of this center will be flooded. So that's very disastrous events for first developed Shanghai city, mega city. So Shanghai municipal government always put more attention to the sea level rise, for Shanghai areas, protect the sea level rise disaster, So the United Nations also almost 20 years ago proposed the dangerous anthropogenic level, The ultimate object of the ultimate objective framework convention of climate, which is adopted by all of this almost the whole country, in the 1991. That convention said to achieve the stabilization of greenhouse gases, the concentration in the atmosphere at a level, which would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system, That's the one point. Second point, such level should be achieved within a framework, the time frame sufficient to allow ecosystem to adapt naturally to climate change. That's the second for ecosystem adaptation, The third one is fold production, That's it's not threatened. The last one is enable economic development to proceed in a sustainable manner, So this convention, very clear demonstration, what's the interference, what's the dangerous anthropogenic level. However, that convention did not say the threshold, the dangerous, what's the dangerous level, what kind of the temperature level, So that's we wait the Paris Agreement in 1915, almost 10 years later, So if you look at the next one, so this gives you some idea why the Paris Agreement selected the 1 degree centigrade to 2 degrees centigrade as a threshold of the climate change. This is something like the dangerous anthropogenic level. I give you some very clear explanation. So I plot 2 lines, dashed line. One is 1.5 degrees centigrade. Another is 2 degree, 2 degree. So below the 1.5 degree and above 2.5 degree, there is a high emission and much lower emission, much lower emission. If you take high emission, you must have 3 or 4 degree increase in the future, That's above the 2 degree, the curve, the several curves. Below, if all of a sudden we stopped emission of the CO2, all over the world, each government just give the order, we stopped the emission of the CO2 in the year of 2016, last year, And the global temperature is still going up, but it's very slowly, very slowly. Basically, it's not reached 1.5, and then it's going down, going down. So this is a very good curve, but we cannot do that. How can I stop the emission, all of a sudden, in the last year, because we still have many the poor country, they try to develop their economy and to solve the problem of the hunger and its many questions, So the trade-off, the trade-off and all the policy, is the take between, takes the limit in between, from the 1.5 to 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade. So that's the target, total target of the Paris Agreement, agreement. Okay, now follow this line of the Paris Agreement. Chinese Academy of Engineering have made a lot of work to know when Chinese can reach the 2 degrees centigrade, in the future, How about the emissions, the CO2 emission for total, What time we can reach the peak of the emission, So this is the CAE to try to solve the problem. The first one, the next one, I'm going to show this diagram to show you is to show you the emission pathway under the different scenario. So you can find out, if you take the 1.5 degree pathway, you must take the bottom curve, bottom curve. So this gives you some idea. You have a very strong limit CO2 emission, CO2 emission. The second work is to show Chinese government, China is when China CO2 emission reach peak. So we provide the second diagram, which show you probably around the year 2030, Chinese emission, CO2 emission will reach the peak. It's almost delay about the 5 and 10 years. For developing country, the peak time is about the year 2020. So this is because the different situation, different situation. But Chinese government try to their best to reach the peak earlier, much earlier, earlier as the year 2025, 25. Next slides to show you Chinese Academy of Engineering provide is to why we should go to the irreversible clean energy developed road, which is so-called low carbon and green development road. So if you look at this diagram, you can find out in China we will decrease the use of the coal, petroleum, and natural gases. So you can find out that these three kind of the fuel have after go through the peak and then going down, and going down. The hydrological energy, is keep it stable, because we have already explored at I maximum, So the future hope to use the new energy is the renewable energy. One is solar, another is the wind energy. So you can find out that this kind of two solar and wind energy have increased very quickly, very quickly. I give you some number, So many countries have taken much action to develop new renewable energy. Low carbon energy sources in China accounts for, this is for the year 1915, 17.9% of total energy consumption in 2015, The renewable energy production accounts for 25% of total energy production amount in China, taking the first place of renewable energy production in scope over the world. This year, I was reported from the other group, It's not only for amount, it's still also for, not still for scope, also for amount, takes this first place for renewable energy use, So this slides show you some picture. So the left one is the wind turbine in China, in coast area, and that's the left one. The right one is the biggest wind turbine. It's like the USA, your country. So your country tried to design the biggest wind turbine, The height is almost 500 meters, Now in China, the wind turbine over the sea, only 100 meters, less than 100 meters, So if United States developed the 500 meter high, the wind turbine, that'll be first one over the world, So very strong wind turbine to generate electricity for many, many households, Another renewable energy is for solar energy. China these enterprises has been developed very quickly. This next diagram show you the case Chinese enterprises have done in Morocco, So a huge solar energy field has been established in Morocco, the gate of the desert. This so-called gate, very nice, very abundant use of the solar energy, by China, Electricity generation and supply with this field accounts for energy 50% total amount in this country. With the supply of the electricity energy from 1 million households, 1 million is not a big number, for households, And the output of the supplies electricity energy to Europe, So this diagram to show you very huge panel array, for solar energy, Chinese enterprise built, Last one, future Earth for next generation, So next generation is not so long. Only our son, our grandson still can live up to the end of this generation. So 3 generations at least, we can see that. So our world in future will have 2 different directions. a peaceful, secure, sustainable future, or irreversible, degraded, and disastrous society. These are two quite different society in the future. So if you look at the left panel, our present world, the green area in between is the green society. It's very secure, very peaceful society. It's our hope, for the future. However, surrounding this area, green area, there is a geophysical stressor, to influence this green area, Also, you can find out another area in center, there is a social stressor, For instance, civil war, hunger, and etc. Also influence the green areas. So in the future, we should expand into the green area and reduce the red area, this stress area. So we come to the C, possible future. The best pathway is going up pathway. So you go very small red area, and very thin the rain area outside area. We have another one. Another one is a very bad, very disastrous society. Who will make decision to take the different pathway? Policy maker and science and engineer. Engineer can change the climate, also can change the infrastructure, can change the technician for adaptation and mitigation. So the responsibility of the engineer is very, very huge in the future for our generation. That's all for my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And we'll bring you out for questions very shortly.
Okay.
I want to introduce you next to Ji Chang. He's the Vice President of Tongji University in Shanghai. He's the Vice President and founding member of the China Green Building Council, the Chinese Building Energy Efficiency Council. He's been granted 8 honorary titles domestically and internationally for his contribution to the transformer of the speed-oriented urban development in China to a sustainably oriented one. And he was the recipient of the American Institute of Architects Honorary Fellowship in 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, Ji Chang.
Thank you. It's a great honor for me to have this chance to represent our group works in the last years. Thank you so much for your invitation, both by the presidents for National Academy of Engineering and the Chinese Academy of Engineering, as well as the Royal Academy of Engineering. And my topic is the urbanization. It's a global challenge and the new Chinese solution. In the last years, we visited a lot of Chinese villages. And the Chinese Academy of Engineering from the year 2011 have organized a bigger team, more than 70 academicians to visit together to investigate the Chinese everywhere, to go to the village, to the cities to see what's the problem. That's we take the picture there in a village. The older children's there, but their parents working in the city. And we ask, what's your want? What's your hope? And most children write down they will move to the city. That's the biggest demands that children today in countryside in China thinks to 1990s. The children born after 1990s, they all want to leave the countryside. Their dream is in the city. And so what's they afterwards? We go to the city, we investigate a lot of young people, what's their dream? But they are most are working very hard in the city. They're working, they also construction the whole cities in the whole China. And everywhere we can see the young generation in China. They are actually born in the countryside, but they contributed the last development in China in the last 30 years, the biggest growth of the cities. But they are also very exhausted. They have their problem. They have a lot of problems need a way to help. That's I would like to show you what's today we do a lot of research for urbanization process in China for the young generation. That's the Chinese, Shanghainese farmer worker. Means we looking for special issue always every month publish for about the research. This diagram shows the income in the last 7 years. They are increased so fast, actually very fast. But on the other side, we just talk about they need help. This is show also they are the living standard where they live in. As most actually very, very clothed in the very simple domestic together. That's the show. They need also help in the city. One side, they build the city. On the other side, they need the home for their next generation. So come here, is this why so many Chinese young generation come to cities? I would like to bring you, come back to the point. When I was a student in 1970s, the whole totally China have only 18% people living in the city. That's the 82% people living in the countryside. That's the point of the Cultural Revolution when we go to the university. But I really want to tell you, after when I retired the year, the China were totally upside down. There will be the more than 80% Chinese living in the city, and maybe only 18 people living in the countryside. That's the generation China will be experienced. We are only the half process. Today, in 2007, we have already 57%. And that means that in the last year, every year, we migrate 1% Chinese from the countryside to urban sites. And 1%, that means the 13 to 15 million people every year. That's the points. And when come back, let's come back to the countries like UK, United States, also other countries. I just looking for 8 countries to show you what happens in this 50% plus period, what will happen. The first nation in the world is the Great Britain, UK, in the 1851. In a year, they closed the 50%. And this time, we found really the disaster of the air pollution. The foggy London, and also everywhere you found a lot of pollution, not only in London, also in Liverpool, in other cities. And this is very tragic story. That's the the river in the mother river of the London. That's the Thames. And the Thames at the Thames, that times one boat is sink, and over 164 people. It's not because they're drunk, because the polluted water, they lost their life. That's the time of the 50% in London, in Great Britain. And we come to the second nation, is the Germany. It's also in the 1893, close to this point, 50%, and the total pollution in the rural industry zone areas, and has the older, the pollution of the people health of the total people. The people say never see 5 days in the sunshine because they're totally dusty. And the people make a joke, you will lost your finger if you see, so with the long arm distance, you don't see your arm, the finger. That's the time. And now come the third one. That's the United States in 1980. And at that time, that's the situation in the United States. The buffalo was hunted and killed, and the population of the buffalo decreased from the 50 million to only last 500. That's the time of the 50% in United States. Also, the looting exploitation of the Western mining industry, and also causing the equal imbalance in the Western side. And also the Western urban development, population growth, and the urban housing, healthcare facilities were serious in the case. Also, that's the United States, 1906, in the San Francisco, after the disaster of earthquake and the fire and the big fires, and almost the most houses demolished in this new extended area of the San Francisco, and the most house was demolished. And on the another side, also the same time in New York, the biggest company of fashion company, Triangle, is the one bigger fires in the factory. In over 100 women workers lost their lives, also during this 50% time. That's, I would like to tell you, the situation today. In China, that's the 50% plus time. And that's also, I would like to say, not only China, that's also when the China closed this 50% in the year 2011, and the world is also just closed this 50%, the total world in the year 2008. So that's the important, what we should see the rules of the urbanization process. So I would like to say the urbanization is the challenge. It's especially in this 50% plus time, this is a global grand challenge for our whole world. That's the point. We are just living for our world, for our time, for this generation. And I always follow these 214 countries and the regions in the world of the urbanization course, our group. That's one line is in China, among them is China. And we divide the different groups. First group is after Second World War already reached high percent, the first developed industry countries. And the second group, the third group, the fourth group, and the fifth group. And we can see that China is also in this fifth group. I always tell my city leaders, mayors in China, I always tell you, don't too much proud of the development in China. China just one of these developing countries. You see, what's the China? China is the neighboring, is the Indonesia, Nigeria, Namibia. That's the China, the way, actually. We are one of the developing countries, actually, close in these groups. And certainly, we don't forget, we have also the sixth group in the world. They are still very low percent of the urbanization process. Actually, if we see the future, we are now the fifth group. And we will see in the next generation, China will experience the third group. In the next group, next generation, maybe China will reach, after 2 generations, will reach the first group. That's a lot of way to do, a lot of challenge of every groups. And totally in general, we can see in our world divided in developed and in developing 2 groups. But in general, in our world, it's just the totally world close to 50%. That's a lot of challenge. Just like in United States, in Great Britain, in UK, in Germany, have experienced the time. That's time most people forget. Actually, Chinese people also don't know experienced what the United States experienced, UK experienced. We should know the period for the world is especially grand challenge. So for me, it's our world is in this 50% plus urbanization stage, which is one of the grand challenge of the world civilization. That's, I would like to tell you, the first, my point of view. Actually, maybe for me, I would like to say the most grand challenge of the world. Whatever we list the 14 grand challenges, actually most because of the urbanization of the whole world. Without this challenge, we can still tolerate a lot of problems. But because of this urbanization of our whole world, we have to change our technology, change our condition, change the condition of life. So I listed all the challenges, grand challenges, because of the urbanization. That's totally 15, like I can bring together with a lot of listed grand challenge, global challenge by NAE. Actually, it's very, very similar every point, like energy. Afterwards, we can see a lot of challenge, like supply the energy in economic way. Actually, this is because we have so many people in the urbanization process. So I would like to show you these laws of the urbanization process. I selected today, every people talk about the G8, G20. I selected these G48 countries because it's really the bigger number of the population in this world. I selected through the 10 indicators. Now we can see what happens in the world. Every nation from the 1% to 100% to very fast urbanization process after the Second World War. But on the other side, the group will be divided in 2. You can see. The first group is normally just the urbanization process. Over the 90%, they can only not reach the $15,000 per capita. Whatever, how much, they can never reach $15 per capita. But the nation transformation during the 70s runs to the 80% transformation from another period. Then you can find these nations will be reach a sustainable innovation innovative way. I really like to tell you the word urbanization actually divided in two words. One is just the labor urbanization, the labor in the countryside and the labor in the urban sites. On the another side, if come here, some nations during the 70s to 80s, transformation to an innovative from the urban and to another urban life. That's the actually we experienced in the all developed industry nations. That's the innovation way. Actually, most people, like our children in the countryside, they don't understand this is two ways. Not only just move from the labor in the countryside to the city, they will become another life. Actually, the most important, the second transition, that's the innovative transition. They have to get the better education and get a new generation of innovation. That can change their life, also change the civilization from the local side. Also, we do the same diagram in China. Actually, you can see also the Chinese different province also changing in the same way. Just the most Chinese state province is just reach this group. That's the 60% to 80%. There will be the most crucial time for Chinese province. If they can change it, they will be also become innovative. If they are not, they will go to the totally the developing the world the same way. And another course, I tell you this 214 nations by urbanization process. A lot have come together, and we see the last 50 years. And you see every nation, their growth of the, every year, growth of the urbanization process. And the more bigger, you can see, very, very interesting is that we found every 10 years, turbulence, 11 years turbulence. The world, the urbanization process, every 10 years to 11 years will big turbulence in the last 50 years. Why? We looking for a lot of elements. Actually, finally, we find the support of the foods. And every 10 years will be related to the food supply. And if not enough, the people will come back to the countryside. If not enough the food, and they will go to the city. And the bigger challenge always in these 10, 11 years. And this is also the first time we showed this phenomenon in the world in different countries, and also see because of the cycles of the sun flakes, 11 years. Very, very interesting. Actually, the social movement also related to the world change. We can see it's really very interesting that the United States come to the 1940s, the most faster, every year 4% urbanization, and then get down through. And the German in the 1870s, and South Africa and Japan after the Second World War is over 10% every year. And Korea, and now come to China. That's actually the urbanization process have a law. The law we should be research. The law we should understand. Only understand law, then we can do better city. That's the word, and we should be also understand a lot of challenges. It's not the grand challenge, it's also the multi-grand challenge, working together, interactive together in our world. The city actually is much complicated as we are. No. And in 1933, we all say city is just working, recreation, living, and the transportation. And after 40 years, all the people were gathering together. In 1970s, we say city is not so simple like a machine, only 4 functions. City is the organ. It's much complicated. After another 40 years, today we say city is not only organ, city is a life. City is much more complicated, most complicated life in the world. We should give the respect to the city. We should research the city. And if we only respect the city as a life, the life will give us a better life for us. So we do a lot of simulation of the city life and in different the way. And in the year 2010, where I worked as the chief planner in Shanghai World Expo, we gave a bigger name, the city being, just like a human being. That should be a new aspect to the city. Also, we should give the respect for the city. Certainly, we simulated in the last years a lot of life. Government, urban planner, investment, and the citizen. And you can see a lot of things. We simulate the city actually automatically. We use the AI to see how city actually real working. And this is the period. Every running, you can see that housing, industry, service, infrastructure, green park, commerce, and the transportation. And during this time, we can see it's very, very regular, the housing and the working place. Every running, if mayor don't think it, government not think, and the investment will think. Every round will think about the working place and the living place. But for green, not from beginning very intensive, but afterwards not so intensive. For the infrastructure, first 5 rounds, very clear. Every city is so intensive for the infrastructure, not only for the time, also for the space. Also very clearly, in the first 4 lines, only very near, and then 5th round will go very fast. 9 units of the distance of the city. They will come to a new town to spring out. And so we simulate, to learn how city actually this life developed. And we certainly, it's not only one combination, we also do a lot of combination to find really the driver system in the city. And also the function laws, how city combine together. And we try to use our system in our urban planning as also one of the engineering. Actually, in the United States, urban planning no longer as the engineering, it's much more as the social science. But in developing countries, in China, we are much more engineering. We facing the same grand challenge. We established the bigger database since almost now 10 years. We simulated a lot of situation of the city, and also we're gathering the biggest data from the world. Today, our team already gave the 12 billion selected, washed data. That will be the biggest city database of the world. It's simultaneously selected all the data from China, from the world. And this, we can use our big data basement and to use to monitoring the different cities, the different situation, economic, ecological, and it can be calculated and it can be computing and also modeling of the city for the future, for the prediction for the future. That's our use the AI for the urban planning. And this is we developed for the new Beijing sub-centers. Just in this CIM, City Intelligent Model, we simulated all the cities in the very fast. This is the new terms I'm also working for as the chief planner. This is the 155 square kilometers. This is new terms for new subcities for the Beijing. We do a lot of exactly simulation. We know every building and how much, and also we simulate the cities of the 1,000 cities of the world. We established the so-called city trees in the world. We would like to learning how the city developed. Now we already selected 1,000 cities of the world. And that's every city you can see the every time developed and developed. And we see the 1,000 cities, and you can see the 1,000 cities in a different way of development. And I divided in these 1,000 cities in different 8 group types. You can see the baby cities, just born, and the upgrowing cities, and also wrecked cities, yeah, and also mature cities, and decline cities, and inflation, yeah, cities. And so you can see a lot of types, and if you see the different types, you can simulate the city much more better. And we just working very hard for the AI used for our intelligent cities. And we're working to try to working people, decision, and the city, the machine together. And after the earthquake, we're working very fast in the earthquake site. We simulate the wind and the water. And we find a lot of laws, very interesting in the local climate. And we just, according to this climate and the air flows, we developed according to this airflow system to combine the new city. And that's after 3 years after earthquake, we reorganize the corridor of green, corridor of the water because of the simulation. Yeah. Also in the Shanghai World Expo, we reached a bigger number of the world history, over 73 million people during this World Expo in Shanghai. We simulated 2 years early before the afternoon simulation. We know exactly the people where time, and we can see the dangerous place. Thank you. I just finished. So that's help us a lot to decision today for the future. And this is a lot of very strong support for our decision for urban development. And this is for the every detailed design, and we now established our platform to see every city in the world, what's the developed IQ, the city. Also over 30 years, conclusion. So urbanization, it should be people-centered, not only the bridge, not only the building, not only the city. And finally, we come back, we should give more room for the migration people. They are born in the countryside, but they will be in the future. So urbanization should be innovation for all people. That's their wish. That's should we do. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I want to invite Mr. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, sir.
I should be sitting here.
No, y'all sit in. I'll sit in between you guys. You two smart guys. That was fantastic. I feel like I have a PhD in climate now. Very good discussion. As you know, there are mics on either side. We have the catch boxes at the back. I'm finding it's just bright here, so it's hard to see until my eyes adjust. I see we've got some house lights. If you would like a catch box, put your hand up. In the meantime, I will go to this mic to start. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. This is a question for Mr. Wu. Beijing is one of the most water-stressed cities in the world by population. I know that Water diversion is being implemented to bring water from the south to the north. But I was wondering whether your city intelligent model has been used in Beijing to conserve the water that you already have, and whether that's a model that could be brought to other cities in the world that might be water stressed in the same way.
Thank you. Thank you for our last new research. The city in Beijing, like another big cities, metropolitan in China, grows very fast in the last 30 years. But in the last year, just 2017, actually, the both cities, Shanghai and Beijing, make a very historical, important closure decision. For the new planning to the 2030 and the 2040, they will keep the size and of the city's population. And how can keep the size of the population? Actually, it's the bigger topic. This is never have the good experience in our world, actually. We should do a lot of simulation. What's the elements should be influenced by the population growth in the city. And so we certainly found something, but we are just working very hard. If you have interest afterwards, we'll keep contact. Maybe we can simulation also the city in another cities. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Very good. Over there.
Good morning. Rapid urbanization often causes economic changes within a city. I was wondering if you could shed some light on the relationship between rapid urbanization and economic disparity and the rate of homelessness in these cities.
Okay, thank you. I have to answer your question. This is important. I just, from beginning, I point out this challenge. One side, by urbanization process, that's actually the historical trends. Every nation, actually, the most children they want. But the reality in the city afterwards, one side is that really they increase their income. You can see the last 10 years in China, increase the income of these so-called farmer workers very fast. But on the other side, you can see also in just around our theater, just by a lot of the people don't have the home. China, not easy to find the people not have home because the strong government. You cannot see so easy to find just around our 1,000 meters already found the people living outside, homeless. In China, it's the much more stronger government. One side, every people belong to an institute. You belong to which university? Like I belong to the Tongji University. But on the other side, I'm also belong to a district. We say the arts-oriented organization. If you are unemployment, tomorrow, the street committee will organize you working together. They are speak together, reading together. So it's every people is a magic structure. So it's in China, it's not so easy to find the homeless people because this local space-oriented organization. Okay.
I have a question here. There is considerable fear that climate change technologies, I guess technologies to mitigate climate change, will displace workers, for example, coal miners. Are either of you aware of successful programs or initiatives that have helped these displaced workers find work in a new industry? And if there aren't programs like this, what do you think a successful one would look like?
If you're talking about for some miner, some petroleum worker,
Yeah.
This is so-called CCUS. CCUS have the meaning of the store and capture and store the CO2.
Okay.
CO2.
So those workers,
Yeah, worker can work on the store and force the capture, from from factory.
so the same workers
Yeah,
can,
same worker can do the liquidize,
Right.
liquidize the CO2.
so who trains them to do that? How do they change?
Yeah, we have a different organization to train them. In Xi'an, in Shandong, and in Shanghai, and in Northeast, we have different training agency.
Got it.
Yeah, training agency. This is very important for now. For CCUS. CCUS.
I see one catch box. Where's the other one? One over here. Where's the other? Where's the second one?
Up here?
Okay, let's take that one over there first.
Yeah, good morning. I'm curious to see how China is helping mitigate the kind of energy reliability issue with renewable resources such as the Moroccan solar field you mentioned and wind. What kind of generation is China doing is to offset the effects of variable wind resource and variable solar resource for your load? In other words, what kind of traditional generation sources are being offset, and how are you still able to supply reliable energy to your loads in China?
What kind of generation?
Yeah, he's talking about
Yeah.
with solar and wind
so
variability.
solar wind, yeah, that's for. I think if talking about the solar and the wind, I think for next generation, will beneficial, very much, because the fossil fuel, we still use fossil fuel, energy, until the middle of this century, and decrease the amount.
Right.
And after that, and the renewable, including the solar and maybe become the predominant.
But how do you handle base load generation? Will solar and wind, which are variable, be able to supply a base load of energy needs?
You mean the lay people, the city
Yeah, well, that's
people?
just the base amount of energy that's needed at the your peak generation.
Okay.
On a hot summer day, will wind, if it's a cloudy day and it's hot, will you have enough wind generation? Will you have enough electricity generation?
Yeah, when the coming season, maybe 10 to 40 or 10 to 20 years, we still use the gas. I think the gas is maybe become the main. I think the.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
There's another catch
Energy
box
use,
up there.
Yes, towards the top. I had a question about the Paris
Stand up.
Climate
We have
Agreement.
no idea where you are.
I'm sorry, I'm top middle.
Okay, way up there. All right.
I had a question about the Paris Climate Agreement. I believe that the goal is to keep the temperature anomaly under 2 degrees Celsius. Do you think this goal is strict enough, and are we on track to maintaining it within the next 50 to 100 years?
I cannot. No, this is the 2 degrees centigrade. This is for this century. I think after end of this century, the emission must be approach zero. This is the prediction. Prediction.
And you think we're on track?
Yeah, on the track.
And,
I think.
and don't forget the urbanization of the world.
Right.
Yeah, another 50 people in the developing country were also transformation to the urbanized world.
So to that, I've got a question on the app. It says most discussions on global warming mitigation tend to focus on carbon-free energy sources.
Yeah.
What percentage reduction in worldwide total energy consumption could be achieved through energy-efficient technologies? And so you're implying that through urbanization.
we do.
For city?
This is Professor Ding told the journal. We are already do a lot of experiment in the new towns, and like in Beijing, we try to know the every daily consume of electronics. Morning 1 peak and afternoon to the evening a big peak. And the producer of the energy is same. Right. And this big M, we upside down, you see a big W. Yeah. This big W, we use a lot of new recharger for the electronic autos, for the cars.
For cars.
Yeah, battery for cars.
So you're saying that you'll use
this W waste,
low demand,
the low demand.
Wasted.
And so we will, in these new terms, over 10,000.
And who will figure that out? Individuals will know, or the cost of electricity will be lower in the middle of the day?
We are trying now, the government invests some time, some percentage, but the company should do a lot, because this waste of the everyday, the energy, if the only 50% charged, right, will be a bigger profit for the both sides.
Got it.
Also for the people.
All right, very good. Over there.
Hello. Of course. Thank you guys for being here. I had a question about the division of cities into this idea of labor transformation and innovation transformation, and identifying that certain cities were on a track to have a much higher GDP as the urban growth continued. In the United States, there's been some conflict over coastal cities where there's a lot of innovation versus central cities that have not experienced that much and have been declining economically, and that's caused some social strife. Do you think that innovation and innovative cities, all cities can grow to be innovative, and what kind of policies would be enacted to encourage that?
Yeah, thank you for the typical question. Thank you. A lot of people in the history believe the innovation of the cities only not more than 500 kilometers from the coast side. When in the continent, they are not innovative city. The old world only 500 kilometers along the coast area. But today, I don't think it's because we have the internet. We have also found some cities, like in Germany, the Munich is the innovative city, much more innovative than the coastal cities. Today it can be. So please give the chance also for the people living in the not coastal city. They should also have the hope. So especially for the children. I support for the hope also, not only in the coast. Thank you.
Hi there. I've just finished my degree, and throughout the process we were reminded of the importance of renewables and the principles of sustainability. So I was a little bit surprised coming to such a forward-thinking event to see one of the largest oil and gas extraction companies as a sponsor. Now, I know that a summit like this with such an extensive and fantastic program costs a lot of money to put on, and I'm sure all the sponsors have shelled out quite a lot of cash to be here, if you'll pardon the pun. How do we accelerate the transition from prioritizing environmental concerns over purely financial ones?
I'm also not familiar with the sales.
Yeah, I think you got the wrong panel. I'm going to ask you to prioritize your questions for the expertise of the panelists here. And
maybe that's a question more directed at GGCS as a body itself.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know.
Actually, I'm not very familiar with
this. Okay, look, I'm going to ask you guys, these two panelists, English is not their first language, so I do need you to come to the mic with a question that's specific for them and well laid out for them. This is not a particularly, and I know, I'm sure there are other panels where that question is very, very valid and it's a good question. I'm not quite sure this is where we're going to get that answered. So if you ask it in a place where it makes sense, I'll give you a priority to make sure that it gets answered. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
But please, I'm going to ask everybody, make your questions very, very specific and clear, not sort of generalized ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, with a lot of jobs going into the internet and people working from home, is there any look into so in a rural environment, the infrastructure is built so that they can actually work from there, so that the issue of everyone going to the big cities and the rural environments becoming impoverished is less of a concern?
First, yeah.
I'm not to catch it. Yeah.
Try that again.
Yes. Try again, please. The simple, just to the question.
So a lot of jobs
Yeah.
are now online, the internet.
Yeah.
And do we
Yeah.
necessarily need to make so people have to work in the cities to do these jobs? Could we do it in rural areas and build them up so they are, flourishing?
In general, I believe it. It's the difference between the cities and the countrysides will be not so big. Especially in China, we have also a lot of new experiment for the villager to sell through the internet to sell their products. The villager organized the in-net commerce, e-commerce from the village. So it's, I think, but the people is not only business. You need also your friends, your circle. So maybe also cannot say two to the same, but on the other side, you still have to atmosphere of innovation.
Right, so you're talking about the idea that
Yeah.
there's a concentration of innovation, there's a concentration of services, it's more energy efficient. I'm not sure that gets achieved in low density areas. Is that the point?
Yes, I totally agree. One side is we need already for the innovation still the urbanized atmosphere.
Yeah.
Because the different people, different culture living together. On another side, through the internet, we destroy the gap. Yeah, so it's much better than for the business.
I just didn't
Thank
want
you.
you with the impression
Yeah.
that he's saying it's okay to do it. I think his thesis is that urbanization is going to be the answer to this.
Oh, yeah,
not-
definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Good question. Thank you very much. We're out of time, unfortunately. Thank you very much to all of you out there for your great questions, and thank you to our two panelists, Ding Yihui and Ji Chang. Thank you. Ji Chang.